Hello world and welcome back. Today we're going to go over doing our animations, blend spaces, stuff like that. And I'm going to also show you how to set up the custom character that we have, the raptor model. If you don't have it yet, you can go back to my video for the stamina system and you can find the link there. Go ahead and download it, get the textures and all that stuff, and we'll continue on. And I'll let you know first we're going to set up that and we'll set up inputs and all that stuff, okay? So real quick, I want to get an input set up for our sit. Since we do have a sit animation and we're going to plug that into our stamina a little bit and have that affect it. So let's go into our input folder, actions. We're going to create a new input action, IA sit. So let's open that up. We're going to go ahead and leave it as a bool. We're going to add 2 triggers. And it's just like our jump, just like our sprint. It's going to be a bool. So we're just going to have pressed and released. Leave it at that. Save it. And let's add that to our IMC. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new one. We're going to find our sit. And for our sit button, let's do, I think it was Q, no, Q was sniff. What was it? We're going to say Z for now because I can't remember, but I'll have to look that up. Oh wait, it was the H key, right? H key to rest. Okay. Also, I did mention previously that I didn't think that they had a toggle between walk, run, but I guess they do at Z. My bad, didn't know about that, but we definitely are going to implement that, and we'll do that probably later in this video, since that'll be related to a lot of the kind of animation stuff going on, and we really want to just keep adding to what we have. So, that said, we've got our sit, real simple here. Alright, so we are done here, just save that, we're going to close that, and we're going to go into our master here. So we have this part down here where we were checking if we're moving. If we're not moving, we increase stamina. If we are moving, we don't really do anything with the stamina. We just don't, you know, gain stamina back, basically. But we're also not spending it. So let's move this over here a little bit. And we're going to end up adding our little sit check right around in here. Because we're going to be, you know, if we're not moving, we're going to increase our stamina rest rate. And to do that, we're going to kind of go off of what we have over here, where we have, you know, our base run. We kind of have a sprint bonus to that. So what we're going to do is similar. We're going to create a new variable over here, and we're going to call this rest bonus. Alright, we're going to make sure we turn that into a float. And what we're going to do is we are going to give it a default. So let's see, the typical rest rate is only 0.01. Again, this would be a lot less in a normal game. We're just speeding it up. But let's just take that and we'll just add another 0. Was it 0.1 or was it 0.01? 0.01. So we'll take our rest bonus. We'll make that the same so that just kind of doubles it up, right? And we'll add that in there. So let's just drop that here for a minute so we remember where it's at. And first we got to go back over here and actually add that functionality in. So here we have our sprint, and we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to get sit. Alright, where is our sit? Ooh boy, I should have named it something else. There it is. Right, we're going to promote that to a variable. I'm going to call that sitting. Oops, that's not it. Sitting. I already have a sitting, actually. I forgot I put that in there earlier. So I don't need this. Was playing around with it a bit earlier. So we're going to take sitting and drag that there. Okay. And just like with our sprint, all this is going to do is toggle whether or not we are sitting based on whether we hold that button down or press that button. Right. So let's comment this. Keep it organized. Call that sitting. I like to change the color. It just feels more readable when it's darker like that. And I can also kind of tell my own comments apart from the stuff that was just came built in. Kind of nice. So we've got that there. Compile and save that. And we're going to go back over here. And then we're going to check, are we sitting. So if we are sitting, gonna break that a little bit down here. Gonna move this over a little bit because we need a little bit of space. Okay. If we are sitting, I'm gonna take this right here. I'm gonna move it down a little bit because we're just kind of gonna copy this whole thing. We could turn this into like a little bit of a macro that we just feed something into, but since we're only doing it here, we're probably okay. But we'll do more about macros later, and we'll kind of go over that. So we're gonna add that in there. That's all we're gonna do. So you just hit click. The plus sign right here will give us another pin. We're gonna take the current and the rest rate like in here, but we're also gonna add our bonus. So if we're sitting, we want to add that little bit of a bonus in there, right? Okay. And then we're just gonna go ahead and connect everything nice and clean. And then we're just gonna comment that to keep it nice and organized. Check if sitting. We don't really want that overlapping with the one where we're actually kind of walking around and moving. So let's move that down a little bit there. Make sure we're keeping that separate because this line right here, this part right here is just for if we're walking. Okay, so we've got that in there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to go over importing the Raptor model. I already have it, but I'm going to kind of show you how to go about it in case you don't know, and just kind of the best way, especially if you're using Blender models, things like that. It can be a little bit tricky. Alright, so I want to right click, go to import, and this is the Raptor itself. These are the textures. Let's do him first. So we're going to go open, and this is the thing that's really important. You want to make sure that we are not importing animations just yet. We're going to do that next. If you do it now, it can cause some kind of really weird problems. So we're just going to do that separately. So unclick that for now, import. Okay. Go ahead and ignore that. And that'll give the Raptor mesh its physics asset, its skeleton. So this is what we all want. And then from there, I'm going to create a new folder. We're going to call this animations. And I'm going to just rename this really quick so that it doesn't get mixed up with the other one. We'll call it Raptor Tut. Actually, let's do it right. So SM for skeletal mesh. Raptor Tut. We'll do that. Okay, and then we're going to actually rename this. You don't have to do this, but you can. So SK for skeleton. Raptor Tut. And then I'll rename this PA for physics asset. Raptor. Oops, Tut. So that'll keep nice and separate from the other stuff I have. And this is the naming convention you would normally use anyway. So I'm going to go into animations now. Import again. And this time, I'm going to click on the same thing. Open that. Now we're going to go ahead and right here in skeleton, we're going to find our raptor. So for me, it's this one. I just imported that. We want to unselect import mesh. Just that. And that's going to automatically get it to say, okay, well, I guess I'm probably importing an animation. See here? It just kind of figures that out. Then we're just going to hit import. And there's our animations. So if you open them up, you can see, there it is. Okay. So we've got our animations in. And then the last thing we're going to go ahead and do is one more folder. We're going to call this materials. Open that up. And we're going to import these textures. And I'm going to show you how to throw these together. This is just a really quick thing we're going to go through because this video is focused on animation, but I just wanted to show you how to get them in there. Okay. So we import these, and I'm not gonna remake that part, but really quick, by the way, when you import these, so this part right here, we don't want this to be color. This it knows is a normal, but this it doesn't really understand. Open that up, unclick sRGB, save. It's going to have an impact. Okay, that's just for the occlusion, roughness, metallic. Okay. So then we're going to create a material. Let's go to material. We'll call it M Raptor Tut. Open that up. We're going to grab all of these and just drag and drop them in there. Okay. And we're just going to do this real quick. We're not going to go fancy on this. We'll go fancy on it later. Right now, we just want to be able to see him. So this part we're going to leave out. We're going to get to the mask later. We'll show you how to do different kind of skin colors and stuff like that while still being optimized. And then from here, this is our base color. This is our normal. This right here is special. It is a packed texture, which means we're going to use parts of it. So this is occlusion, roughness, and metallic. The red is occlusion. The green is our roughness, and the blue is our metallic. And then we're going to select all of these, click on from texture asset, and do shared wrapped. That'll keep it a little bit more optimized. It kind of helps out with resource load. And we're just going to keep it at this, save that. Okay, and then we're going to go into our save all. Go into our Raptor Tut. We're going to open up our Raptor. And you can make a material for the eye. This is literally just, I mean, it's basically just a color that's plugged into that. You can, you know, I tweaked around with the metallic and the roughness and things like that. I give them a little bit of emissive, possibly, just to kind of give it some sheen. But we'll get to that later. Don't want to save that. So, and then for the skin, you would just go in here and do Raptor, and then check whatever the skin is for that. And there you go. It signs it up. Okay. So that guy's set, he is ready to go. Now we actually get into the real animations. So we're going to go into here, we're going to right click and we're going to go to animation blueprint. An animation blueprint essentially controls and runs all of the animations related to this character. It helps to blend them evenly, things like that. When you're doing animations, you kind of want to avoid like kind of hard setting it to, you know, play animation or play this montage unless it's something really specific. You really want to avoid those and use animation blueprints because you can really refine it. You can really modify it. You can blend things together really well. And it keeps everything in one area, which is really nice. So go ahead and select your Raptor skeleton, or what was it? The Raptor Tut, that guy. I'm gonna hit create. I'm gonna call it ABP for animation blueprint. Raptor. Oops. Oh God, I can't write. Raptor Tut. Okay. Save that. And then we're going to open that up. So the first thing we want to do is we need a state machine. And the state machine basically figures out the current state that we're in, and it decides what to do about that. So we need a state machine. This is going to run if we're idling, if we're walking, sitting, whatever. It's going to basically be able to manage that and assign animations based on whatever state we're in. From here, we want to go ahead and throw in a slot. And I'll show you more about this later, but this will basically allow us to tie in montages to our animation. We need this to be able to run those. And again, we're going to go into that later. That's a little bit more kind of fancy, if you will. Right now, we just need the basics, but we're just going to keep that there for now. We're going to open this up, and from here, this is where the real good stuff goes. So let's kind of start with the basics. We're going to drag from this entry, and this is where everything starts, and we're going to add a state. And again, remember, a state is just whatever state you're in. Are you sitting? Are you idling? Are you walking? What is your current state, right? So we're going to add a state, and we're going to call this state idle. This is our base state. This is what we're doing when we're not doing anything else. It's our default state. So if you open that, double click on that to open it, it's going to ask for a result here. And what we're going to do, we're going to start out by dragging our idle to here. I have an idle 1, but I'm not done with it. So right now we're just going to use this. But you can see our list of animations that we can use. And we're going to pick this guy here and just plug that in. We want to click on this and make sure that it is actually looping, because we don't want it to just play once. We want it to keep playing. So make sure it's looping. Compile that, and you'll see that it updates right here on that left window. So this is our default state. And now we've got that running. So the next thing we want to do is, okay, well, we need to be able to run and walk. But running and walking is a little bit unique. We need to blend. So when we're moving from our walking state to our running state, we don't want it to be this sharp jerk where it just goes from walking to just suddenly running. That doesn't make any sense. We want it to kind of pick up momentum so it feels and looks more natural. And for that we need a blend space, which is something that just blends between two animations based on certain data. Okay, let's get that blend space set up. So we're gonna actually go over here to our Raptor, right click it, go to create, blend space 1D, because that's all that we need right now. Normally if we were able to strafe or put in a lot of rotation, we would have a regular blend space, but since we're mimicking the island, it's very kind of one-dimensional as far as movement goes, we don't really need that. So we're just going to do this one, and we're going to name this BS underscore for blend space. And let's go with Raptor Tut. We'll go with walk. So we're going to take that, click, just kind of hold and drag that into our animations folder. And then make sure we save and open that up. So over here, you can see it's got a horizontal axis. This is where we're going to feed our speed into. And this is going to determine how fast, or rather which animation we're playing. So it's going to feed in our speed, and then this blend space is going to say, okay, based on the speed, this is where we want our animations to be. And I'll show you how that works. So let's name this speed. And then for the minimum value, we want that to be 0. So either we're not moving at all, or we are moving, but it's definitely not going to go below 0. And then for the maximum, we want to have a pretty high number so that we can kind of give this variation. So we know that for our Raptor, because again, this is specifically for our Raptor, this is how this works. We know that for our Raptor character, that his base run speed is 400, his sprint bonus is 300. So 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So let's go a little bit around, let's turn it to maybe 750 just to be safe, okay? And then for the grid divisions, we need to have an idle, we need to have a walk, run, and then sprint. So that's 4, so we need 4, which is exactly what this is. And then I like to do snap to grid just because it makes it a little bit easier when you're dragging these on, that they actually snap in a location, we don't have to adjust it. Alright, so let's leave it at that for now. And then over here we've got our animations. So if this is our speed from 0 to 750, at the very, very beginning of it, when we're not moving at all, obviously we want our animations to be idle. Let's pull this over a little bit so we can see. So let's take this idle animation and just drag that on there right there. And that snaps right into place. And then we need to consider as we go up. So for our walk, if we're not idling, we need to walk. And we want to consider how we want to. So if I hold control down, I can move it along this and kind of see how it looks in the preview. So if you notice that he kind of starts out idling, and then he'll just slowly start moving, and it picks up as the speed increases to reach our walk speed, okay? So our current walk speed, we should probably base that off of what our actual walk speed is for our, not this guy, but for our Raptor. So our Raptor's base walk speed, which I actually do think is the default. So let's see, base, where's our walk speed? Our base walk speed is 150. So let's actually go ahead and just kind of set that on the Raptor, especially so we could just see it later. So we'll just go set base walk speed, because we can change this later if we want to. We'll set our base walk speed to 150. So now we know that that's going to be 150, right? So let's go back to our blend space. And we want to make sure that this is about 150. So right now, it's not, but we can change it right here. So 150. Oops, I gotta turn up the snapping for this particular part, actually. So 150. Okay, there we go. Which means that by the time his speed gets to what his base walk speed is, he'll be doing his walk. Okay? So the next thing we need to drag into is going to be his run. And for his run, his base run speed is 400. So we want to take that, just click on it, oops, and then go over here and do 400. So if I hold control and move my mouse around, you can see how he speeds up. He goes from a walk, speeds up into a run. Okay, perfect. So the last thing we want to do is set up our sprint. And we don't really have an animation for sprint, but we really just need to have a faster run here animation. So let's go back over here, and we're going to take our run, we're going to right click, and we're going to duplicate that. And we're just going to modify that run a little bit. So instead of having this called run, we're going to call it sprint. And we're going to open up this animation. Now if we go over to our rate scale, if we speed this up, well, he speeds up. We can slow it down and he slows down. So this animation, this is what it's normally at, and we want to actually have that a little bit faster so that he looks like he's sprinting. Now we know that our current, if we increase from our run speed, if we add our bonus, it's almost double that, but not quite. So let's think about that. So let's try 7.5. Okay. And you can see that he looks like he's sprinting now. So let's give that a shot. He does look like he's going real fast. We might need to bring it down a tiny bit. But let's just give it a try for now. We can actually, if we don't want to set looping over here, you see that we had to, in our animation blueprint, we clicked on that and set it to loop. Down here, we can also just set it over here. So might as well just do that right now and save that. It doesn't really matter where, but as long as you make sure that it is set. So we have a sprint now. Let's go back to our blend space. And the last thing that we need to add is that sprint. So again, it's going to be 400 plus 300. So 5, 6, 700, right? So let's take our sprint that we just made, drag it on there, and we're going to turn that up to 700. So now, actually, yeah, let's just add one more at the very end here just to be safe. Because we might do something with this later, but this is where we want it now. But we want to make sure that we're still sprinting if we somehow go over that. And maybe we'll have another way of handling that later. But right now, let's just hold control. We can go from the beginning, so idle, to a walk, from a walk, to a run, from a run, into a sprint. Look how nice and smooth that is, right? And that's what we want. We want that nice smoothness, and that is what a blend space is for. It's for smoothly working from one animation to the next when they need to be streamlined like that, okay? So we've got that blend space. Now let's go back over to our animation blueprint. So we've got our idle. We'll go back to our state machine here. And from our idle, we need to be able to go into a run. So we're going to drag off of that, and we're going to add another state. And this is going to be our walk. Actually, yeah. Let's call walk, run. So we have the idle state when we're in the state of being idle. And then we need to be able to move into the state of walking or running, or I guess sprinting. And for this, open that up. We now have our blend space here. We can grab that and drag that in and just connect that like so. But we also need to feed in our speed. So we need to get our velocity. Remember, we've gotten our velocity before. Now, the cool thing about an animation blueprint is that it can store its own variables and things like that that it references from the character. And it kind of keeps everything neat and tidy in here that it needs for animations. It's very useful. And what we're going to do, we're going to get the owner of the animation is always going to be the character that we're playing. So let's just drag up with that. And we're going to cast to our master. Cast to our master, right? Because we're very rarely, if ever, going to need to cast to the actual child character of the Raptor blueprint. It's almost always going to be the master. So we're going to go off of that. And then what we want to do is we want to promote this to a variable. So we're going to promote that so that we can just access it whenever we want. I'm just gonna call it character. And then, now that we have that promoted, we're gonna get the movement. And that's the thing that, again, holds all of our movement-related information, stuff like that. It's going to be our movement component. A component is just like a smaller actor that's attached to the main one. We're going to get that, and we're going to promote that as well, so we have just easy access to it. We'll just leave it what it's called, okay? And now we've got that set up, but the next thing we need to do is we want to go into, well, we need to actually change this bit here for whenever we're updating the animation, so every time it updates an information we can get new data and just double check everything. So we're actually going to disconnect this because we need this for something else, and over here this only needs to happen once, and that's just whenever the blueprint starts up. Whenever this animation blueprint starts up, we only need it to fire one time. It doesn't need to keep going. So let's just go off of initialize. So event blueprint initialize animation. That just means when it starts up, we're going to fire this off and then we're done. We're not going to keep running it. Nice and easy. And then over here, this just ticks every time we're doing an animation update. So this is very important to just kind of keeps going. So first we're going to get our character. And we're going to make sure that this is valid. We need to be able to ensure that there is a character there that it's calling to, so it doesn't give us kind of wonky stuff and break. So I right click on this, I can convert to validated get. That way it's not going to run the rest of the code unless there's actually something to run it from. So from here we're going to do a sequence. And a sequence, again, is just saying do this, then do this, then do this. It's kind of a clean way to run your code versus just having this big long string of it. So we're going to do that. And we're going to get a couple of variables for the characters so we can set them so that we can easily access them within the animation blueprint. So we're going to get our character movement. Actually, you know, we don't even need to do that. We're going to get our character. And remember that pure function of get velocity? We can actually call that from here. That's the great thing about being OOP, or object-oriented, with your programming. We're going to get that velocity. And we're going to set that to our speed. Okay? And we're going to use this whenever we go over here into our walk. So we're just going to take speed, get that, and just plug that right in. And so that blend space that we made is going to check whatever the speed is, and again, it's going to use that speed to determine where we're at on the animation scale here. Alright? So let's save that. So the next thing we want to do, we're going to add more to this in a minute, but the next thing we want to do is make sure we can reach this. So to go from idle state to a walk-run state, we need something to happen that tells it to do that, right? We need to actually know that we need to transition over, and that gets plugged in right here. This is basically where we're going to plug in a little bit of code to say this is how to enter that space. This is when you need to do it, okay? So to do that, what we want to do is check if we can move, right? Or if we are moving, essentially. So let's go back over into our event graph here for the animation blueprint. And the next thing we're going to do is, so we've got this, we're getting our velocity, right? Alright, we're getting our speed, we're setting that here. The next thing we want to do is see if we can move, right? So we're going to get our movement component. Again, this is the thing that stores all of our movement related stuff with our characters, just built into them. And we're going to get current acceleration. So this is, well, it's acceleration. I guess it explains it by itself. Don't really need to break that down. It is essentially where we're at as far as our acceleration goes. Not our speed, but how fast we're accelerating, okay? Alright, so we want to see if we're accelerating, okay? We want to do something called not equal. So basically, if this vector, this current acceleration, if it is not equal to 0, right? If it is not equal to 0, that means we're accelerating. We also need to know, I'm going to move that part down there. We also need to know if we are actively showing some speed. So, you know, we know that we're accelerating. We also need to know where we're at right now for speed. Because if we just start out accelerating, but we're not actually showing any speed, then we just started moving, and we're not technically actually moving yet. And we also need to know, so let's say that we have a current speed, but we're not accelerating, then maybe we're slowing down, or something like that, right? So we want to see if the speed is greater than, let's say, 5 or 3. We'll say 3. I think that's about the default check for this. That gives us a little bit of leeway like before, because sometimes, you know, physics can do weird things. We might be moving a teeny tiny bit, and that shouldn't really matter. But again, here, we're just saying, are we accelerating? If we are accelerating, are we actually actively moving? Are we actually going anywhere? And if we are, then that means that we are, convert that to a variable, moving. And that's a bool. So it just toggles off, are we moving or are we not moving? Yes or no. That's all a bool is. It's a yes or no. Okay? So I'm going to comment that and just say, check if we're moving. Alright, and we're going to change that color. We need to know this, and this is going to be very useful when we go back to our state machine. Open that back up. All we need to do is grab moving. If we are moving, then we want to run our walk cycle. If we're not, we're just doing our idle. And the cool thing about this blend is that, so you've got our idle here, and we also have our idle in our blend space. So it'll smoothly transition between that base idle here in our idle state, and then the very start point of our idle from our walk run. It'll give that a smooth transition, okay? So now let's just give this a quick test. If I have this set up here for the idle walk run, I should be able to see that. I'm going to take go into my Raptor child class here, and I'm actually going to take this, and I'm going to trade it out with the new one we just made, just so that we can double check that the one that we're running is working correctly. And I'll just use our new skeletal mesh just to make sure we're testing everything brand new, okay? So we're going to save that. And let's just test it out real quick, okay? Alright, so here's our raptor, and if I push forward, you can see that he's walking. Go back to idle. If I'm moving, he's walking. Go back to idle if I don't move. So W, forward, walking. And then, if I'm walking and I hold down shift, he starts running. Check that out. And look how nice and smooth. I let it go and push down again. Look how nice and smooth that goes back and forth between the two. And then it's a little jerky when we go back into our walk whenever we're out of stamina, but we'll put in something to smooth that out later as well. But right now, we can nice and smoothly go from our run into our sprint. We can go back into an idle. And then we'll eventually have the rest put in here. The next thing we're going to do, I think, is going to be, let's see, maybe our jump and our sit. Let's get those in next year, okay? Alright, so we know that works. Alright, so these videos are getting kind of longer than I wanted. I don't want to go too crazy with the size of each one. So for the next one, we'll probably add in rotating the head, stuff like that, kind of cleaning it up and refining it a bit. But I'm probably going to leave it here for now, and we'll just kind of do the rest in the next one, clean that up some more, add a few more adjustments to make it feel a little bit more real and a little bit more alive. So thank you again for joining me. We'll get another video up soon. I appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that junk. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.